They said the sky was the limit. Then someone decided to buy the sky. A chain of super tall towers connected by sky bridges high above the clouds. Reflections of a city 400 meters below, etched in glass. The higher you live, the louder your silence speaks. Billions allocated, engineers summoned. Because when you want the skyline, you build higher. "67 super talls in 6 years. Not built for need, built for dominance. This is the new hierarchy. Arrival at the summit, the new hierarchy of altitude, measured in altitude high above the world. Lobbies that feel like cathedrals of capital. Then the race began, in the clouds. They are private skydoms, sanctuary at height, where every floor is a statement, every view a trophy. It started with one tower, a solitary titan in a flat world. Then the clusters began, taller, faster, higher, trillions in value, reaching for the heavens. Dubai transformed into a forest of light and steel. Every city wants the tallest crown. The race is relentless. 2 cities, 1 competition, the architecture of ego. Planned for dominance, built for the elite. Shadows that never move, a permanent eclipse. Not for the space, but for the altitude itself. The signature that secures a place in the sky. Standing at the summit of the New World Order. Selling the feeling of absolute supremacy. Every topping out is a coronation of steel. Thousands gather to witness the coronation of a new titan. A new king has been crowned. A new king has been crowned. The sky is now occupied. Not everyone celebrates the rise of the titans. Living in the shadow of giants, watching the sky change. Redefining the very ground we walk on. The gates to a world most will never enter. Privacy is the ultimate amenity, a world above the world. Convenience becomes a lifestyle, a vertical city, where time moves differently, faster, higher. When you build this high, failure is not an option. Calculating the forces that attempt to bring them down. Every bolt, every weld, a testament to endurance. A symphony of steel performed 400 meters up. Every continent has contenders in the global race. The race is global. The stakes are everything. The Manhattan cluster, a forest of vertical ambition. Shanghai's triumvirate, piercing the neon night. A generation growing up with towers as the norm. The skyline has changed forever. Nostalgia is all that remains. The super tall is a broadcast signal, a lighthouse in the sky. You cannot avoid it. It is the new myth. a broadcast signal that cannot be ignored. Architectural glass, panel by panel, sealing the sky, reflecting every part of the sky, dominant and eternal. Colors shifting across the heavens, a digital coronation. The penthouse sells a feeling of absolute summit, disconnected from the earth below, standing in the clouds, the feeling of standing at the very top of the world. A hand placing a sold sticker on the highest floor, success? Privacy is not an amenity here. It is the architecture itself. The paperwork of power reviewed at altitude. Silence speaks louder than any words in these halls. Disconnected from the street, an exclusive arrival when nature meets the reach of human ambition. Concrete and steel, the heart of the myth. Disconnected from the earth, reaching for the unknown. Above the clouds, the tower becomes myth, eternal. The towers catch the light longer than anything below. Shadows lengthening, light turning to pure gold. They were the last things the sky touched, forever. Vertical monuments to the age of titans. The sky is ours. They said the sky was the limit. Then someone decided to buy the sky. These are not just buildings. These are declarations of war against gravity and against you. In 2026, the world's most powerful addresses are measured in floors, not streets. The higher you live, the louder your silence speaks. Power doesn't announce itself anymore. It simply rises above. Power is vertical. The race began quietly in boardrooms behind reinforced glass. Billions allocated, engineers summoned, mountain ranges of steel ordered. Because when you want to own the skyline, you don't ask permission. You just build higher, reaching for the sun. Between 2020 and 2026, 67 super tall towers were completed. That's one new vertical colossus every 32 days. Not built for need, built for dominance. The skyline is the scoreboard, and in the score is vertical. This is the new hierarchy, above the rest. Not measured in acres, in square footage, or in zip codes. Measured in altitude, high above the world. The higher your floor, the further you are from the rest of humanity. These are not apartments, they are private skydomes. Where the amenities are curated, the staff are silent, and the neighbors are wealth itself. The building doesn't just house you, it defines you. It separates you from the common world. It started with one tower that rewrote what was possible. Then the world's wealthiest watched and understood the language. Height is wealth, height is control, height is permanence. And the race to own the highest address in every city began. In 2026, your floor number is your identity. Floor 3 is a tenant, floor 93 is a sovereign. The building knows who you are by how high you ascend, and the world below doesn't matter when you're above the clouds. Every city wants one, every billionaire wants the top. The competition isn't economic anymore, it's architectural ego. Who stands tallest above the rest of the world? The sky is the final frontier of ownership. The race continues, dominance established. Inside, every super tall is a vertical city. Restaurants, clinics, spas, command centers. A world entirely above the street. Once you enter, you never need to come down. 10,000 workers, 5 years of construction, billions in capital, all for a building that will be owned by fewer than 300 families. The scale of sacrifice is invisible to those who buy the floors above. That is also by design, looking down at the world. The city below did not ask for these towers, but the city below cannot stop them either. When capital decides to build skyward, zoning is a negotiation, and money negotiates very well, always. In 2026, floors in the world's most prestigious super talls sold for more than entire city blocks. Not for the space, for the altitude. For the address that says, I am above this. Elevation is everything. Height is the ultimate luxury, and every floor has its price. Every topping out is a coronation, the crowning moment. The moment a building claims its place in the permanent record of height. The moment a city's skyline is permanently altered. Gold in the sky. A new king has been crowned, and it is made of glass. 2026 isn't just a year. It is the inflection point when vertical height became the defining metric. Not wealth managed in accounts, wealth expressed in altitude. The tower is the trophy, a monument to success. The floor is the crown, the ultimate achievement. The world's ultra-wealthy don't want more square footage. They want more sky, more silence, more separation, more atmosphere. The amenities are irrelevant. The privacy is total. The elevation is everything, a life above the noise. Not everyone celebrates the towers, they watch in silence. For those below, the super tall casts more than shadow. It casts a statement, this sky is purchased. And you did not pay for it, the sky is gone. Inside these towers, time moves differently, a slower pace. The city's rhythms, it commutes, weather, noise do not reach you. Canyon streets, permanent shadows, microclimates, the geography of wealth. This is what $200 million buys, the complete removal of inconvenience. The science behind a super tall is as extreme as its ambition. Buildings designed to flex, to breathe, to survive forces nature didn't intend. Engineering that costs as much as some countries' annual budgets. Precision at altitude. Because when you build this high, failure is not permitted. Every continent has its contenders. Every global capital wants the tallest crown. It is not a building race, it is a civilization race, a vertical leap. And the finish line moves higher every year, reaching for the peak. The sky is the final frontier of ownership. The race continues. A super tall is a weather system unto itself, standing above the lightning. Wind accelerates around its base. Temperature drops at its crown, a canyon of capital. Clouds form at its midsection on humid days. The tower breathes through its core. This building doesn't just occupy space, it creates its own climate, a permanent sundial. Facade systems cleaned continuously by specialist crews. Curation of perfection. Infrastructure maintained by teams that outnumber the residents 10 to 1. The silent army. The tower never sleeps, never slows, never allows itself to show age. Eternal glass. Every super tall is a living system. 10,000 sensors monitoring the heart. Clouds form at its midsection on humid days. A mythological structure. Structural AI that adjusts the building's response in real time. The tower reacts. The tower feels. The tower reacts. The tower learns. Structural intelligence. When super talls cluster, they create a new form of urban geography, kingdoms. For them, the towers are not a disruption. They are the city, the new normal. The altitude is normal, the hierarchy invisible, a shifting perspective of power. And that invisibility is the most powerful status symbol of all, a beacon in the dark. The penthouse doesn't sell for the rooms, it sells for altitude, the ultimate fee. It sells for the feeling of standing at the summit of a city, of looking down and seeing everyone else looking up. In 2026, that price is astronomical. The sky has a definitive owner. The super tall's symbolism transcends its architecture. It is power. It is a monument to the age of concentrated wealth, higher than all, a permanent mark on a city's identity, whether the city consented or not. The tower stands, the argument is over, silence remains. The super tall protects its own. No access, no compromise. In 2026, that price is astronomical. The sky has a definitive owner, everything designed, everything curated, everything controlled, a permanent eclipse. From above, through glass, on their terms, total command of the environment. The world is a view, and views are for purchase, childhood at altitude. On foggy mornings, a super tall becomes mythological, ascending to the heavens. Its base consumed by cloud, its crown above weather, immune to the storm. Disconnected from the earth it stands on, a concrete sky bunker. As if it always meant to leave. Floating free of the city it dominates. Today's super tall is tomorrow's outdated skyline, watching the next one rise. The next one is already designed, already funded, already taller, the peak of ambition. Today's super tall is tomorrow's outdated skyline, architectural evolution. Because the only thing more prestigious than the tallest building is the next one. The floor number is the ultimate credential. It tells you where you stand without words. In the new vertical aristocracy, your elevation is your title, balance at altitude. And titles in 2026 are bought in glass and concrete, the vertical registry. Vertical hierarchy is the new social contract, identity by altitude. As the sun sets on 2026's most vertical year, a black spire in the sky, the towers catch the light longer than anything below. Golden glow. They were the last things the sky touched, a world above. And the first things the dawn finds, ambitious monoliths. This is part one of the story. The towers are built, the hierarchy is set, the dawn. The sky is claimed, a new world order. But who truly controls what rises above us? And at what cost? Coffee at the summit. The answer begins at the very top, the towers that swallowed the sky. Behind every super tall is a decision, made in a conference room, ratified on a private jet, executed with 9 figures. The architects of vertical dominance aren't dreamers. They are the most calculating operators of capital the world has ever produced. The architects of super talls don't design buildings. They design legacies that define the skyline for generations. Structures that will define skylines for generations. Lines on paper that become the most expensive square footage on Earth. A super tall is not built from passion. It is built from a funding model that few institutions in the world can execute. Sovereign wealth, institutional capital, ultra-high net worth pre-sales. The money moves before the foundation is poured. The great vertical developers of 2026 are the modern pharaohs. They don't build for function, they build for permanence. For the skyline record, for the legacy, for the moment when a stranger looks up and sees their name. Some towers are private, others are national projects. State-funded declarations of civilizational arrival. This decision belongs to history. When a nation decides to build the world's tallest, that decision belongs to history before the first shovel enters the ground. Asia did not follow the super tall trend. Asia invented its modern form. Entire CBDs erupted from empty land in a single decade. The speed of vertical construction, there is a category without comparison. Every super tall pushes material science to its limit. Glass stronger than steel, concrete that flows like water and sets like iron. Adhesives engineered for a 100-year service life. Because in a super tall, there are no small decisions. In earthquake zones, the super tall must be a survivor. Engineered not to resist the earth, but to move with it. To absorb, to flex, to endure. A building that bends is a building that stands. The elevator is not a convenience. It is the fundamental infrastructure. Without it, the tower is an unlivable ruin. The engineers who design super tall elevators are among the most specialized on Earth. They make altitude livable, the mechanical heart of the tower. The super tall is not monolithic, it is stratified. Commercial at the base, luxury ascending above. The same address, radically different worlds. The building is a vertical city, with all the inequality that implies. Every floor is a different price, a different view, a different status. The 70th is more prestigious than the 60th. It represents a different tier of access. The penthouse is more prestigious than them all. Altitude is the luxury item. Everything else comes with it. The interiors of super tall penthouses are assembled like museums. Material sourced from every continent. Craftsmen flown in for single installations. The result is a private world created without compromise. The super tall was never inevitable. It was approved. Approved over objections, over heritage concerns, over community resistance. Approved because money argues persuasively. And the tower rising today was someone's protest lost yesterday. The most prestigious super talls are not just tall. A silhouette that is recognized in the city's skyline from 50 kilometers away. A silhouette that is recognized in the city's skyline from 50 kilometers away. An icon, not a building, a brand, not an address. Grand openings of super talls are the most exclusive parties in the world. Attended by heads of state, industrial dynasties, cultural icons. To be invited is a signal, to be absent is an answer. The super tall creates its own social gravity. The newest generation of super tall buyers never visits the city they buy into. The tower is an asset, the altitude is the hedge. The city is irrelevant, the ranking is everything. Location is no longer geography, it is height. The super tall consumes the energy of a small town. Chillers, pumps, elevators, lighting, data systems. The infrastructure is extraordinary and deliberately hidden. The resident sees only perfection. The machinery is someone else's concern. In a super tall, safety is a parallel city unto itself. Evacuation from floor 100 is not an emergency. It is an expedition. Every system duplicated, every backup tested, every risk modeled. The plan alone is an engineering document. Every system duplicated, every backup tested. The observation deck is the tower's concession to the public. It says, you may see from here, but only from here. It says, you may see from here, but only from here. Public access at altitude. Everything above is beyond your access. A public boundary in a private sky. The juxtaposition of human scale against urban scale made tangible. On certain nights, the super tall belongs to everyone, celebrating in the sky. It wears the city's colors. It broadcasts its achievements to the horizon. But in the morning, the private floors return to private lives. The performance is brief. The exclusivity is permanent. Life at the summit is curated to the finest detail. Exclusivity defined. The objects around you chosen for permanence. The people chosen with care. Below, the city improvises. Above, everything is intentional. The elite life. Everything is intentional. Every sound, every silence in the sky. The super tall does not exist in isolation, a contrast of heights. It rises from a city that is not uniform in its wealth. The tower's glass skin reflecting their image back at them. The vertical hierarchy makes visible what was always present, luxury cuisine. The distance between those at the top and those below, measured now in floors. Every super tall is also a story of labor, men building icons. Thousands of workers who built the floors they will never sleep on. The tower remembers its owners, not its builders. Who built the floors they will never sleep on, a sacrifice for scale. The tower remembers its owners, not its builders, permanent and gleaming. The super tall protects you from the city's weather, Defensive architecture. Its engineering defeats the storm before it reaches your floor. Constant monitoring. You inhabit a pocket of manufactured calm, defying the elements. The resident reads a book, unaware of the storm, while below, the city endures what you cannot feel. At the top of the super tall, you don't leave from the street, you leave from above. The helicopter is the doorstep of the summit class, ready for departure. Traffic doesn't exist at this altitude, lifting into the sky. A private sky, high-altitude traffic above the city below. The super tall has its own media ecosystem, published, photographed, celebrated. The building is simultaneously architecture and brand, capturing the design, simultaneously home and spectacle, documented for the world. To own a floor is to live inside an icon, a brand recognized everywhere. The newest super talls don't just rise, they contain entire ecosystems, high nature, forests at 200 meters, rivers at 250 meters, nature in the vertical stack. If you can't come down to the park comes up to you, vertical life, an inserted layer of nature in the vertical stack. What the super tall hides underground is as extraordinary as what it raises above. A subterranean world of private luxury, invisible from the street. Sky, street, and underground, each sovereign, each curated, subterranean luxury. Each invisible to the uninvited. The machinery of exclusivity never rests. The most ambitious super tall developments are not single towers. They are vertical neighborhoods, communities connected above the street. A private infrastructure that requires no contact with the city below. A passport to a city above the city. The shadow a clock hand measuring the day for those who live outside it. Time at scale. All in service of the few at the top, working above the city. The data of a vertical city printed and reviewed over coffee. Operational control. Absolute presence, the profile defining the city at dusk. Dominating presence. The economists have a view that differs from the architects. Wealth concentration. They see concentrated capital made physical. Inequality expressed in altitude, higher every year. They see a permanent record of an era, and they are not certain what the record says. They see a permanent record of an era, clustered in geography, inequality mapped. For the builders of these towers, there is a moment of reckoning, power in the night. When you realize you cannot unmake it, the city will carry this skyline for generations. The tower is an inheritance imposed, a legacy written in glass, the start of it all. His biography written in glass, a permanent legacy, dominating the skyline. At 3 a.m., the super tall belongs to itself. No staff, no wealth announced, silent and vast. Just the building, breathing, monitoring, enduring, eternal and indifferent. Night patrol. A structure that will outlast everyone who ever owned it. The only thing awake, a structure that will outlast everyone. The super tall greets the sun before the city does. At altitude, dawn comes earlier, prismatic column. The tower lives in a slightly different version of time. Always ahead, always above. The morning gift. Always first, always above. The pinnacle of time at the top, illuminated skyline. Always first, always above. The tower lives in a slightly different version of time. Always first, always above. Part 2 ends where every super tall begins, with a completed building, epic diversity, epic ambition, absolute presence. But completion is not a conclusion. It is an opening, 7 years to this moment, the story made permanent. The tower begins its second life. As a cultural object, a status symbol. The building coming to life. Status symbol defined. Object, cultural building, life. Status symbol defined. Object, cultural building, life, status symbol defined. Object, cultural building, life, status symbol defined. The story of 2026 made permanent in glass. When two titans build in the same city, the competition is existential. Not for market share, not for return on investment, for the title of the absolute tallest tower in the city. The tallest tower in the city is the only title that matters. In the height race, designs change mid-construction. Floors are added as rivals gain on the record. The building is revised while it is being built. Because to be second tallest is to have already lost. Every world record in architecture is a starting gun. The moment a building claims the title, the next one begins drawing. There is no plateau in the height race, only the next ambition, already on a drafting table somewhere. Tallest is the most powerful word in luxury real estate. It unlocks a price premium that no other superlative can match. And for those who must be first, must be highest, the price is academic. The title is the product, the apartment is included. The super tall is a geopolitical signal as much as a building. When a city claims it's first, it announces itself to the world. When a nation builds the tallest, and it makes a statement about the future. architecture as foreign policy, steel and glass as soft power. In a competitive super tall market, the towers watch each other. Their observation decks are tactical, their heights are negotiating positions. 2 buildings, 2 developers, 1 skyline, 0 compromise. The height race has engineering consequences. Decisions made in competitive haste, corrected at enormous cost. The building does not forget decisions made in haste. It carries the evidence in its concrete forever. City governments are not neutral in this vertical race. They are participants, incentivized by tax revenue and economic signals. The planning approval is not a victory for the public. It is a negotiated surrender. What rises in the skyline reshapes what remains at street level. The super tall doesn't cause displacement intentionally. The super tall causes displacement inevitably in the end. Altitude is a market force, and markets move people. For those who live in the path of a super tall's shadow, there is no appeal. There is no remedy. The planning approval was all the conversation the city needed. What was taken from the street was given to the sky. Height was never only a luxury built. Cities have always stacked the poor. What changed in 2026 is who controls the most height. The race for altitude now belongs to wealth. The bottom floors belong to everyone else. The price war is a deep competition. Records exist to be broken today. In 2026, the buyers exist now, and each falling record is a brief. Every groundbreaking is an erasure of what stood before in the city, of the city that existed before the capital arrived. We have arrived, we are rising, we intend to be seen. Communities challenge towers in court. They win occasionally or delay it. The legal system operates in parallel. By the time judgment comes to us, the super tall does not only compete, it competes with our long history, with the visual memory of the past. And in that competition, the building often wins. The super tall alters the city's climate at street level. Winds it accelerates, sunlight it eliminates. Temperature gradients it creates now. The building lives above the weather. Emergency services are honest about super talls. The external resources are inadequate to the height. The building must be its own first responder. The life safety of the summit depends on its infrastructure. The super tall's contribution to affordable housing is negotiated. 3% of a building designed for the ultra-wealthy. A check to a fund that will never build at this altitude. The concession is real, the impact contested. The cruelest irony of the symbol. Many expensive floors are empty, purchased as assets and held tight. The tower stands full in theory. Governments have begun to resist the empty altitude. Vacancy taxes, surcharges, disclosure requirements. But the capital that builds towers funds elections? The resistance is real, its effectiveness slower. The floor is a self-appreciating asset. It doesn't require any management. It requires only altitude, and it is finite. Every super tall floor is finite, the demand is not. The super tall's public contribution is cynical. A plaza designed for community here. A lobby open to the public leads nowhere without a card. The building gives just enough to make taking invisible. The tower achieved the impossible. The city's most photographed object. Every tourist who takes a photo, creating free advertising for the floors for sale. The super tall has embraced sustainability as a language. LEED Platinum is the new goal. The building is getting greener now. The equity report is less reviewed. Even super talls can fail commercially today. Built at peak ambition, caught in a downturn. The building survives, its funding structure does not. The tower waits for the next cycle of wealth. The floor is a financial instrument, owned by funds, managed by trustees, inhabited occasionally. The building is a vault, the altitude is the asset class. The city below is the geographic footnote. The tower performs generosity today. It opens its doors for causes. It allows the world a glimpse of what altitude feels like, then closes again and returns to those who own the view. Super talls do not age gracefully. They require continuous reinvention to maintain position. The tower of 2010 competes with buildings of 2026. Prestige is maintained or erodes. Altitude is the definitional backdrop of power portraiture. The executive at the absolute summit, the deal closed above the clouds in the city. The message, I operate at a high level. Critics of super talls are not Luddites, they are recorders. They document what cities choose to build today. The super tall is a mirror reflecting our own society. The reflection is worth examining. The most important question is, how tall is it? The most important question is what it teaches the child. That wealth is visible, that altitude is achievable. The reflection is worth examining carefully. 5 cities claim global leadership. Each has a case in a tower. Each tower will stand for 100 years, and the race will continue forever. Every generation's most controversial building often stays. becomes a landmark for the next. The super tall that protests raged against in 2019, visited with reverence in 2026. The tower is still arriving now, where the first tower is not a luxury built. A message to every other nation watching us. We have arrived and are rising. Part 3 is the tension, the power and the resistance here, the beauty and the consequence, where the story of 2026 reaches its reckoning. The story of the super tall is not over. It is in the moment of being written. We are building the monuments that will define this century, and we are only now beginning to understand what they mean. The super tall that was once the tallest is no longer, but it still stands, still dominates, still commands. Because the tower's second ambition, after height, is time. These buildings are designed to outlast everything else in the city. The super tall of the next decade may redeem the failures of its predecessor. Not just tall, but self-sufficient. Not just tall, but self-sufficient. Not just exclusive, but ecological. The altitude that was once pure status may become pure function. The next generation of super tall may be designed differently. Not imposed on cities, but designed with them. Not just for the summit, but for the street. The ambition of height finally accountable to the ground. Perhaps the future of the super tall is not ownership. Perhaps the future of the super tall is not ownership. Perhaps it is stewardship. A building whose altitude serves not just the buyer, but the city looking up at it. The sky doesn't belong to anyone. The building has yet to learn that. The people who made the super tall possible, authoring the building, looking up, are not the people whose names appear on it, buried acknowledgement deep inside. The engineers, the builders, the material scientists, they authored the building. The buyers only acquired it. Every era has its monuments. Every civilization reaches for the sky as proof of itself. The super tall is the pyramid of the 21st century, ancient monuments. And like the pyramid, it will outlast the civilization that built it, millennia cross-cut. Water does not remember towers. Cities eventually forget the controversies of their tallest buildings. What remains is the building itself, stripped of its context, harbor spectrum, just height, just permanence, just the question it poses to the sky. The city gets rained on, the super tall gets rained through. The super tall gets rained through, the water running off it like consequence off capital. The street below it, the weather shared, the shelter unequal, capital above the problem. The street below it, the weather shared, the shelter unequal. Climate change has given the super tall an argument no architect designed for. In a flooding city, the high floor is the safe floor, altitude has suddenly become a genuine ecological survival advantage. The status symbol has become the shelter, altitude as survival advantage. The super tall's most human moments are its opened ones, when the altitude is shared. When the altitude is shared, however briefly. When the view belongs to the visitor as much as the owner, these moments are the building's most democratic, and its most rare. At the observation deck, the super tall performs its most egalitarian act, crowded view. It sells altitude by the ticket, all briefly equal in their position above the city. For 90 minutes, everyone who can afford $25 stands where only the wealthy otherwise stand. The children who grow up beneath super talls, drawing instinctively, hierarchy absorbed. Draw them instinctively into every cityscape. The tower is normative. The hierarchy is absorbed without instruction. The city has taught them, this is what importance looks like. It looks like height. The super tall's greatest achievement is not its height. In a city that replaces everything, like the super tall endures, it becomes a statement of time. In a city that replaces everything, the super tall endures. It becomes not a statement of wealth, but of time. Occasionally, a super tall floor finds redemption, private view shared. The private view becomes a public resource, exclusive altitude democratized, purpose served. The exclusive altitude becomes a shared aspiration, shared for purpose, cultural community. These moments are exceptions. They should be the rule. From altitude, the city's story is visible. The towers mark the places where money chose to make itself permanent. The map of super talls is also the map of capital concentration. The skyline reads differently when you understand what it's actually measuring. The age of super talls in 2026 delivered more height than promise, more altitude than accountability. The skyline is visually magnificent, but more altitude than accountability was built. The verdict of urban planning, more beauty than equity in this decade. The reckoning will take a generation. The buildings will be there for it. The architects of the next era are designing differently, accountability to the ground. Not just from conscience, from mandate, vertical commons proposal, new typology. The sky doesn't belong to anyone. The building has yet to learn that, sharing the altitude. The Tower of the Future is vertical, and vertical commons, shared sky under construction. As 2026 closes, the super talls of the world stand as the year's record, permanent beacons. The super talls of the world stand as the year's most permanent record. Not voted for, not publicly commissioned, but permanent, undeniable, irreversible. For those who call the super tall home, the altitude is not a statement, it is simply where they live. The view is not a trophy, it is the window. The sky is not a symbol, it is the backyard. From far enough away, the super tall is invisible, cosmic irrelevance, Cydia mark. From the street, it is overwhelming, human ambition reaching high, atmospheric descent. The truth of its significance lies somewhere between those perspectives. Important to the city, negligible to the universe, decisive to those who build it. 2026 will not be remembered only for its super talls. 2026 will not be remembered only for its super talls. But the super talls will ensure that 2026 is remembered. The skyline is the archive, the floors are the files. The building completes, the record is official, the height is recorded. The record is official, the height is recorded. The city's skyline is permanently altered. And somewhere below, the next one is already being designed. The moment of topping out belongs to the builders, making it real, before the buyers arrive, before the press, before the prestige. The building, briefly, belongs to those who made it real. That is a beautiful moment, and it ends quickly. The historians will eventually agree on what the super talls of 2026 meant, rising choices. They will call it the age of vertical capital, the age when power stopped being horizontal, and decided once and for all to rise. Hierarchy of capital. And decided once and for all to rise. In the quiet of the early hours, the super tall loses its status. It is just a building. The person inside is just a person. The sky doesn't know the difference. City enormous and indifferent. Points of light. The next generation of architects looks up at what was built, seeing both inheritance and problem. And sees both inheritance and problem. Reimagining the future. Graduating student perspective. The sky already claimed. Graduates spilled onto the street. Professional future waiting. The question, what will the next generation build, and for whom? Tiny on the street. The super tall runs itself, a machine of altitude at peak efficiency. Systems designed to outlast their designers. The building continues, whether it is noticed or not. It will be running long after everyone who built it, bought it, or argued about it is gone. The birds have been navigating these towers for years. They do not know who owns the floors they fly past. They know only the sky and the obstacle in it, passages in the clouds. They do not know what the height costs. They know only the sky and the obstacle in it. The fog returns the super tall to the sky, separation by cloud, just altitude. Interior building lobby in the fog, visibility reduced to 20 meters. The building belongs to no one in this moment. It is just altitude, above weather, above city, above argument. The global count of super talls grows every month. Every completion a claim, every proposal a declaration, digital map of global ambition, Asia to the west. The planet is gradually being punctuated by vertical monuments to concentrated ambition. The map is a portrait of this era. It is still being painted. The year turns, the towers do not, drinking above it all, celebration in the clouds. 2026 becomes a record, and the buildings are its archive. What was built in this year will stand for a century. The penthouse guests drinking above it all, their year defined by altitude. The next super tall is already planned. The next height record is already targeted. The next skyscraper is already planned. The next height record targeted, but coming. The race continues. The sky is not yet full. The super tall status symbol of 2026 is not complex. It says, I rose above. It says, this city belongs partly to me, looking down from the clouds. It says, look up and understand the distance between us. The towers rise, human ambition reaching for the sky. The sky remains, the story of this century still being written. Absolute apex. The city continues, one building, one crowd, one moment. The towers invisible, the sky permanent, the claim forgotten, one floor at a time, concluded.